Welcome to the world of fiction's most unforgettable villains. Characters so cunning, so ruthless, and so brilliant that they left even the sharpest minds reeling. Villains are more than mere antagonists. They embody chaos, test the boundaries of morality, and push our heroes to their limits. Today, we explore 9 such villains from literature, each unique in their method and menace. From the Napoleon of crime, Professor Moriarty, to the elusive Kaiser Söze, we'll uncover what made them so dangerous and why they still haunt readers' minds. Let's start with one of the greatest rivalries in detective fiction history: Sherlock Holmes versus Professor Moriarty. Professor Moriarty, the Napoleon of crime. Professor Moriarty isn't your typical villain. Introduced in The Final Problem by Arthur Conan Doyle, Moriarty is described by Holmes himself as the Napoleon of crime, the mastermind behind an unparalleled criminal network. Unlike Holmes's other adversaries, Moriarty matches his intellect, making their rivalry electrifying. The story begins with Holmes revealing to Watson that he's been the target of relentless attacks orchestrated by Moriarty. As Holmes attempts to escape his clutches, we see the depth of Moriarty's reach. His network operates like clockwork, unseen, yet devastatingly effective. Their battle culminates at the Reichenbach Falls in Switzerland. In a dramatic confrontation, Holmes and Moriarty grapple on the edge of the falls, where both seemingly plunge to their deaths. But, as we later learn, only Moriarty met his end that day. What makes Moriarty fascinating is his mystique. He's more a concept than a character, embodying the ultimate intellectual challenge for Holmes. Over the years, adaptations have expanded on his character, fueling debates about his true motivations. Could he have been a twisted mirror of Holmes himself? Dr. Hannibal Lecter, the cannibal genius. Next, we meet a villain who chills us not with brute force, but with his mind. Dr. Hannibal Lecter, the cannibal psychiatrist from The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. Lecter is unlike any other criminal. Imprisoned yet in control, his genius makes him as seductive as he is terrifying. FBI trainee Clarice Starling approaches Lecter for insights into another killer, but what ensues is a psychological dance. Lecter peels back Starling's psyche layer by layer, while giving just enough clues to lead her forward. His charm lies in his contradictions. He's cultured, brilliant, and even polite, yet his actions are monstrous. One unforgettable moment comes when Lecter escapes custody, using his intellect and brutality to disappear into the night. Why does Lecter endure as a villain? Because he defies categorization. He's more than a killer. He's an enigma. Would you trust him, knowing what he's capable of? That's the haunting question Harris leaves us with. Tom Ripley, the chameleon. Tom Ripley is the ultimate social climber, charming, cunning, and completely unburdened by conscience. Patricia Highsmith's The Talented Mr. Ripley introduces us to this morally ambiguous character who blurs the lines between hero and villain. Unlike the overtly menacing Moriarty or the calculating Dr. Lecter, Ripley operates in the shadows, using lies and murder as tools for survival and advancement. Background and psychology. Ripley starts life as an outsider, longing for the wealth and sophistication he sees in others, but can never seem to attain. His childhood is marked by neglect, poverty, and a constant need to prove himself. This background breeds resentment, but it also hones his survival instincts. When we first meet Ripley, he's a small-time con artist in New York, living on the fringes of society. Despite his criminal tendencies, he exudes a boyish charm that makes him likable, perhaps even relatable. He's the underdog you almost want to root for, despite knowing how dangerous he is. What makes Ripley unique is his adaptability. He can be whoever he needs to be in any situation, whether that's a charming friend, a devoted lover, or a cold-blooded killer. This chameleon-like quality is both his greatest strength and his greatest danger. Ripley's story. Ripley's story begins when he is hired by Herbert Greenleaf, a wealthy businessman, to travel to Italy and persuade his son, Dickie Greenleaf, to return home. Dickie is living a carefree life in the Italian Riviera, squandering his family's wealth and enjoying the company of his close friend, Marge Sherwood. When Ripley meets Dickie, he's immediately captivated, not just by Dickie's wealth and lifestyle, but by Dickie himself. Ripley ingratiates himself into Dickie's life, becoming his constant companion. At first, Ripley's intentions seem harmless. He admires Dickie and wants to be part of his glamorous world. But when Dickie begins to pull away, Ripley's obsession turns dark. In a moment of anger and desperation, Ripley murders Dickie, sinking his body into the sea. It's a shocking act, but what follows is even more chilling. Ripley assumes Dickie's identity. He forges letters, manipulates financial records, and seamlessly steps into Dickie's shoes, enjoying his wealth and freedom. But the charade is precarious. As suspicion grows and investigators close in, Ripley must use his quick thinking and lack of scruples to stay one step ahead. Tom Ripley's methods. Ripley's greatest weapon is his ability to lie convincingly. He reads people with unnerving accuracy, knowing exactly how to manipulate their emotions. His crimes are rarely impulsive. They are calculated, with every detail meticulously planned. Consider the way Ripley stages Dickie's life after his murder. The level of detail in his planning requires not just intelligence, but a deep understanding of human psychology. Ripley's charm is another powerful tool. He disarms people with his affability, making them believe he's harmless. Even when the truth begins to unravel, his victims often hesitate to believe he could be capable of such darkness. What makes Ripley such an enduring villain is his lack of remorse. He doesn't kill out of malice or vengeance, but out of necessity as he sees it. To Ripley, murder is just another means to an end. This pragmatic approach to crime makes him deeply unsettling. Unlike many villains, Ripley isn't caught. At the end of The Talented Mr. Ripley, he gets away with everything, sailing off to a new life of wealth and privilege. This lack of justice leaves readers with a sense of unease. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality that sometimes evil triumphs. Ripley and his pursuers. Ripley's brilliance lies in how he handles his pursuers. From the Greenleaf family's suspicions to the Italian police investigating Dickie's disappearance, Ripley stays calm under pressure. He twists facts, feigns ignorance, and plants doubt in the minds of those hunting him. His psychological manipulation is as chilling as any murder he commits. Ripley's legacy. Tom Ripley is a villain who doesn't fit neatly into any category. He's not a genius like Moriarty or a predator like Lecter. He's a survivor, driven by envy and ambition. His story forces us to grapple with difficult questions. How far would you go to escape your circumstances? Is Ripley evil, or is he a product of a society that values wealth and status above all else? Ripley's tale is a slow burn, but it leaves a lasting impression. He's not just a villain, he's a mirror, reflecting our own fears and desires back at us. And that's what makes him unforgettable. Count Dracula, the immortal master of shadows. Few literary villains have captured the imagination like Count Dracula, Bram Stoker's iconic vampire. With his chilling charm, otherworldly powers, and thirst for human blood, Dracula set the template for the modern vampire mythos. Yet, beneath his gothic allure lies a figure of cunning, manipulation, and pure malevolence. In this segment, we'll explore Dracula's origins, his methods of terror, and his clash with those who sought to stop him, weaving a tapestry of fear and fascination, the Count's origins and legacy. Unlike some villains, Dracula's backstory is mysterious yet steeped in historical and mythological roots. Stoker loosely based him on Vlad the Impaler, a 15th century Wallachian prince notorious for his brutality. But the Dracula of fiction transcends his historical counterpart, becoming a symbol of timeless horror. Residing in his crumbling castle in Transylvania, Dracula is both a relic of the past and a predator of the present. His immortality is not just physical, but cultural, as he represents fears of invasion, corruption, and the unknown, fears as relevant now as they were in Stoker's Victorian England. Dracula's powers and vulnerabilities. Dracula is not merely a man, he is a creature of supernatural prowess. His abilities include shape-shifting into bats and wolves, commanding nocturnal creatures, and exerting hypnotic control over his victims. He can travel as mist, climb sheer walls, and even influence the weather. Yet his strengths are matched by his weaknesses. Dracula cannot tolerate sunlight, holy symbols repel him, and he must rest in his native soil to regain his strength. These vulnerabilities make him both godlike and mortal, an eternal predator who is nonetheless bound by rules. Summary of Dracula. Stoker's novel begins with Jonathan Harker's ill-fated journey to Transylvania to assist the Count with a real estate transaction. At first, Harker is captivated by Dracula's charm and hospitality, but the veneer of civility quickly crumbles as Harker discovers the castle is a prison and his host a monster. Once Dracula arrives in England, his true reign of terror begins. He preys on Lucy Westenra, transforming her into a vampire and plunging her friends into despair. His attacks are not random, but calculated, targeting the psyche as much as the body. It is Professor Van Helsing who leads the charge against Dracula, assembling a group of brave souls, including Harker and Lucy's fiancé, Arthur Holmwood. Together, they uncover Dracula's plans and embark on a desperate quest to stop him. The novel climaxes with a thrilling chase back to Transylvania, where the group confronts Dracula in his lair. In a dramatic battle at sunset, they destroy the Count, just as the light of day pierces the darkness. Dracula's manipulative genius. What sets Dracula apart as a villain is not just his power, but his mind. He is a master manipulator, using charm, fear, and seduction to control his victims. Consider Lucy, who falls prey to Dracula not through brute force, but through his slow, insidious influence. He draws her into his thrall with nightly visits, draining her vitality while sowing discord among her friends. Even in death, she becomes a pawn in his game, luring her loved ones into despair. Dracula's manipulation extends beyond individuals to society itself. His arrival in England is a metaphorical invasion, a foreign threat infiltrating the heart of Victorian culture. By preying on the innocent and subverting traditional norms, Dracula becomes a harbinger of chaos and corruption. The hunters struggle. Dracula's hunters, Van Helsing, Harker, Mina, and the others, are not just fighting a monster, but grappling with their own fears and doubts. Van Helsing's scientific mind clashes with the supernatural, forcing him to expand his beliefs. Mina's intelligence and resolve are tested as she becomes a target for Dracula's power. Their struggle is as much about faith and courage as it is about physical confrontation. Dracula pushes each of them to their limits, making their eventual victory not just a triumph over evil, but a testament to human resilience. Dracula as a symbol. Beyond the fangs and the capes, Dracula is a deeply symbolic figure. To Victorian readers, he represented anxieties about foreign influence, sexuality, and the erosion of traditional values. Today, he continues to embody our primal fears: the fear of death, the fear of the unknown, and the fear of losing control. Dracula's ability to adapt to different eras ensures his place as a cultural icon. From Stoker's novel to countless adaptations, he evolves while remaining true to his dark essence. What makes Dracula truly terrifying is his ability to persist. Even in death, his shadow lingers, a reminder that evil is never fully vanquished. He is both a relic of the past and a harbinger of what lies ahead. A villain who transcends time and space. Dracula's story is one of horror and heroism, of darkness and light. And though the Count met his end in Dracula, his legacy continues, haunting our imaginations and reminding us that the battle between good and evil is eternal. Kaiser Söze, the phantom puppeteer. In the pantheon of villains, Few are as enigmatic and terrifying as Kaiser Söze. The elusive mastermind from The Usual Suspects is not just a criminal, he's a myth, a spectre that haunts the criminal underworld. His very name invokes fear, uncertainty, and a chilling sense of inevitability. In this segment, we delve into the legend of Söze, his modus operandi, the psychological terror he wields, and the web of deception that leaves audiences questioning everything. The legend of Kaiser Söze. Unlike most villains who are defined by their actions, Kaiser Söze is defined by his legend. In the criminal world, he is more ghost than man. According to The Usual Suspects, his origin story is the stuff of nightmares. A petty drug dealer who became a ruthless overlord after avenging the murder of his family by killing his attackers, and shockingly, his own wife and children, to send a message. Whether this story is true or fabricated doesn't matter. The legend serves as a tool for control. Söze operates through fear, and his reputation alone allows him to rule from the shadows, his actual existence always in question. The events of The Usual Suspects. At the heart of The Usual Suspects is a narrative labyrinth constructed by Söze himself. The story begins with a heist gone wrong, leading to the interrogation of 5 suspects, a group of seasoned criminals brought together seemingly by chance. Among them is Verbal Kint, a physically disabled con artist who weaves the tale of Kaiser Söze. The group's descent into chaos begins with a mysterious job that puts them in Söze's crosshairs. Their mission: eliminate a Hungarian gang that poses a threat to Söze's operations. But as the plot unfolds, it becomes clear they are merely pawns in Söze's grand design. The climax comes on a ship in the port of Los Angeles, where Söze's presence looms large. Witnesses are silenced, evidence is erased, and the survivors are left either dead or bewildered. The ship burns, and Söze vanishes, leaving nothing behind but questions. Kaiser Söze's modus operandi. Söze's genius lies in his ability to operate without being seen. He doesn't just commit crimes, he orchestrates them like a symphony, every note precisely timed. His network of agents and operatives carry out his will, while he remains a shadowy figure pulling the strings. What makes Söze truly terrifying is his unpredictability. He doesn't act out of greed or anger, but a cold, calculated need to maintain control. His willingness to destroy anyone, friend or foe, ensures that no one dares to cross him. His defining trait is his mastery of deception. Even his physical appearance is a mystery. Is he tall, short, scarred, or unassuming? Verbal Kint's account is deliberately unreliable, further obscuring the truth. The Pursuers, a game of cat and mouse. The investigation into Kaiser Söze is led by Special Agent Dave Kujan, who becomes obsessed with unraveling the mystery. Kujan's interrogation of Verbal Kint is a psychological chess match, with Kujan determined to expose the truth. But Söze's brilliance lies in how he uses the truth to his advantage. Verbal's story is a masterclass in misdirection, blending facts and fiction so seamlessly that even Kujan, a seasoned investigator, cannot distinguish one from the other. In the end, Kujan realizes he has been played. As Verbal walks out of the police station, his limp vanishes, and his true identity is revealed. Kaiser Söze. The moment is as shocking as it is inevitable, a testament to Söze's ability to outthink and outmaneuver everyone. Kaiser Söze's psychological terror. Söze's greatest weapon is not violence, but fear. He is the embodiment of uncertainty, a villain who could be anyone, anywhere, at any time. By remaining an enigma, he controls not just his enemies, but the narrative itself. To the criminals who fear him, Söze is a reminder of their mortality. To the audience, he is a reminder of the fragility of truth. In a world where perception is reality, Söze's ability to manipulate perceptions makes him invincible, the master of the unseen. Kaiser Söze is more than a criminal mastermind. He is a force of nature. His ability to vanish without a trace, leaving only whispers and legends behind, makes him one of the most compelling villains in modern storytelling. As Verbal Kint famously says, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. In that sense, Söze is not just a character, but a reminder of how easily we are deceived, and that, perhaps, is his most terrifying trait of all. Neville St. Clair, the man with two faces. The Sherlock Holmes universe is full of mysterious figures, but few are as perplexing as Neville St. Clair, the titular character of the man with the twisted lip. St. Clair's story isn't one of outright villainy, but rather a tale of deception, desperation, and dual identities. In this segment, we unravel the layers of his life, his peculiar predicament, and how his deception baffled even the great Sherlock Holmes. For a time, a gentleman's disappearance. Neville St. Clair was, by all outward appearances, a respectable gentleman of Victorian London. He lived comfortably in Kent with his wife and children, maintaining an image of affluence and moral integrity. But this image was shattered when he vanished under circumstances as dramatic as they were mysterious. The story begins when Mrs. St. Clair, while visiting London, glimpses her husband in the window of an opium den in Upper Swandam Lane, a place utterly at odds with his reputation. Her cries go unanswered, and by the time she forces her way inside with the help of the police, Neville is nowhere to be found. Instead, they find a dishevelled beggar named Hugh Boone, whose twisted lip and ragged appearance suggest a life spent on the streets. The only clue? Bloodstains on the windowsill, and Neville's monogrammed pocketbook. To Mrs. St. Clair, the conclusion is clear. Her husband has met with foul play. Hugh Boone, the unlikely suspect. Hugh Boone, the man at the centre of the mystery, is an infamous figure in London. A professional beggar, Boone is known for his pitiable appearance and sharp tongue, with his grotesque deformity, a scarred lip that twists his face into a permanent sneer. He has eked out a living by appealing to the sympathies of passers-by. But Boone's involvement in Neville's disappearance is baffling. He denies knowing the missing man, yet the evidence seems damning. Not only was he found at the scene, but he also possesses uncanny knowledge of the area. As the investigation unfolds, Boone's defiance and Holmes's growing suspicions set the stage for one of the most surprising revelations in the Holmes canon. The investigation. Holmes, at his best. When Mrs. St. Clair turns to Sherlock Holmes, she places her trust in the greatest detective in literature. Holmes dives headfirst into the case, examining every detail with his trademark precision. Dr. Watson's narration paints a vivid picture of the grimy streets of Upper Swandam Lane, contrasting sharply with the genteel life Neville St. Clair once led. The opium den, with its sordid patrons and haze of smoke, provides the perfect backdrop for a tale of duplicity. Holmes methodically eliminates possibilities. The pocketbook could suggest foul play, but there's no body. Boone's disfigurement might make him an easy scapegoat, but his alibi holds. It is Holmes's relentless pursuit of truth, his refusal to accept the obvious, that leads to the stunning conclusion. The truth revealed. In a moment of sheer brilliance, Holmes exposes Hugh Boone's secret. Boone is not an impoverished beggar, but none other than Neville St. Clair himself. The twisted lip, the scars, the ragged clothing, they're all part of a carefully constructed disguise. St. Clair's double life is a product of necessity. Years earlier, financial misfortune drove him to desperation. Donning the persona of Hugh Boone, he discovered the lucrative world of professional begging. To his astonishment, the income far surpassed anything he could earn honestly. What began as a temporary solution became a way of life, hidden from his wife and the world. Themes of deception and desperation. St. Clair's story is more than a tale of mystery. It's a commentary on societal appearances and the lengths to which people go to maintain them. Victorian England, with its rigid class structures, left little room for failure. St. Clair's deception is not rooted in malice, but in the desire to provide for his family while preserving their respectability. His dual identity, gentleman by day, beggar by night, is a poignant reflection of human adaptability and the masks we wear to survive. The twisted lip, symbolic of his secret, serves as a reminder of the cost of deception. Closing reflections, The Man with the Twisted Lip showcases Arthur Conan Doyle's ability to weave complex moral questions into a gripping mystery. St. Clair is neither hero nor villain, but a man forced into an extraordinary situation. His story challenges the audience to consider the lengths they might go to in the face of adversity and reminds us that even the most perplexing mysteries have deeply personal roots. Through Holmes' brilliant deductions and Doyle's nuanced storytelling, Neville St. Clair's tale becomes a poignant exploration of identity, morality, and the human spirit, a story that lingers in the mind long after the final twist is revealed. Rodolphe Boulanger, the charming destroyer. In Gustave Flaubert's Madame Bovary, few characters leave as indelible a mark as Rodolphe Boulanger. He is a study in contrasts, a man of sophistication and wealth, whose charm hides a streak of calculated cruelty. Rodolphe's involvement in Emma Bovary's life is pivotal, catalyzing her downward spiral. In this segment, we examine Rodolphe's motivations, his seductive power, and the devastating consequences of his actions, framed by the moral and social constraints of 19th century France. Introducing Rodolphe, the wealthy libertine. Rodolphe Boulanger enters the narrative as a landowner of considerable means, residing in Yonville, a provincial French town where life is stiflingly monotonous. His physical appearance, dark, handsome, and self-assured, sets him apart in this rural setting. From the outset, Rodolphe's demeanour reveals his true nature. He is a man who has everything but values little. Relationships, to him, are games to be played and won. Beneath his polished exterior lies a profound cynicism about love and human connection. When he first encounters Emma Bovary, her beauty and obvious dissatisfaction with her life intrigue him, but his interest isn't rooted in genuine affection. Rodolphe is a hunter, and Emma is merely the next quarry in a long line of conquests. The seduction of Emma Bovary. Emma Bovary, trapped in a suffocating marriage with the well-meaning but uninspiring Charles, craves romance, adventure, and grandeur. Rodolphe's arrival offers her an intoxicating glimpse of the life she's dreamed of. He courts her with a practiced ease, using her vulnerability to his advantage. Rodolphe's strategy is meticulous. He observes Emma's yearning for passion and exploits it, weaving himself into her fantasies. His words are calculated to ignite her desires, painting himself as the romantic saviour she longs for. At first, Emma hesitates, but Rodolphe's persistence and her own discontent lead her to surrender. What follows is an affair as fiery as it is one-sided. For Emma, Rodolphe represents escape and fulfillment. For Rodolphe, Emma is a fleeting amusement, a diversion from his otherwise idle life. The break. Rodolphe's callousness, Rodolphe's true nature is laid bare when Emma suggests running away together. To her, this is the ultimate declaration of love. To Rodolphe, it is an unwelcome complication. The idea of abandoning his comfortable existence for Emma's sake is laughable to him. In a moment of cold pragmatism, Rodolphe pens a letter breaking off the relationship. His words, though veiled in false concern for her well-being, are devastating. To ensure the letter is delivered with finality, he places it in a basket of apricots, a cruel gesture that underscores his indifference. Emma's response is heart-wrenching. The betrayal shatters her, plunging her into despair. Her illusions of love and escape are crushed, leaving her more deeply mired in dissatisfaction and longing. The impact, Emma's downward spiral. Rodolphe's departure marks a turning point in Madame Bovary. Emma's once lofty dreams crumble into desperation. She attempts to fill the void with reckless spending, another affair, and increasingly erratic behaviour. Though Rodolphe is absent for much of the narrative following their breakup, his influence lingers like a shadow. He represents the catalyst for Emma's most self-destructive tendencies. Her idealism, already fragile, is obliterated by his betrayal. Flaubert's critique of romantic idealism and societal constraints is embodied in this relationship. Rodolphe, with his cynicism and privilege, becomes the foil to Emma's naivety and yearning. Their affair is not a meeting of souls, but a tragic collision of incompatible desires, a symbol of ruthless privilege. Rodolphe's role in Madame Bovary extends beyond his personal actions. He is a symbol of the indifferent upper class, exploiting those beneath them without consequence. His wealth shields him from accountability, allowing him to move through life untouched by the wreckage he leaves behind. Even as Emma's life spirals out of control, Rodolphe remains unscathed. He doesn't suffer for his actions because he never invests enough of himself to feel their weight. This detachment makes him one of the literature's most chilling villains, not because he commits heinous crimes, but because his cruelty is casual, almost thoughtless. Themes and reflections. Rodolphe's story intertwines with the broader themes of Madame Bovary, the pitfalls of romantic idealism, the constraints of societal roles, and the consequences of unbridled ambition. Emma's infatuation blinds her to Rodolphe's true character, just as Rodolphe's cynicism blinds him to the depth of Emma's need. Their relationship is doomed not by external forces, but by the fundamental mismatch of their perspectives. Rodolphe's manipulative charm is no match for Emma's desperation, and the fallout of their affair underscores the dangers of unchecked passion and unfulfilled longing. Why Rodolphe endures. Rodolphe Boulanger remains a compelling figure in literary history because of his complexity. He is neither a monstrous villain nor a tragic hero, but something far more unsettling. An ordinary man wielding extraordinary influence over another's life. His indifference, masked by charm, makes him all the more dangerous. Rodolphe is a reminder that harm doesn't always come from malice. It often stems from selfishness, apathy, and a lack of accountability. In the grand tapestry of Madame Bovary, Rodolphe's role is crucial. He exposes Emma's vulnerability, forcing readers to grapple with uncomfortable questions about love, power, and the human capacity for cruelty. His story lingers because it is all too real, a cautionary tale of what happens when charm meets carelessness, and the heart is left to bear the consequences. Amy Dunne, the architect of chaos. In Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl, Amy Dunne is a character who defies categorization, a master manipulator, a scorned wife, and a meticulous strategist capable of reshaping her world to exact revenge. Her story is one of calculated brilliance and psychological warfare, making her one of the most chilling villains in contemporary literature. Amy is not just an antagonist, she's the driving force behind the narrative, controlling the story as tightly as she controls the people around her. The cool girl persona, Amy Elliott Dunne introduces herself to readers and viewers alike as the epitome of charm and sophistication. Raised as the inspiration for her parents' Amazing Amy book series, she grows up with the burden of being an idealized version of herself. This pressure leaves her resentful, instilling a lifelong need to control how others perceive her. When Amy meets Nick Dunne, her future husband, she adopts the cool girl persona, a witty, sexy, effortlessly perfect version of herself that Nick falls for instantly. But this is just the first layer of Amy's complexity. Her persona is a carefully crafted facade, masking a woman who refuses to be ordinary, predictable, or vulnerable. The crime, staging her disappearance. The heart of Amy's villainy lies in her masterful plan to fake her own disappearance. Fueled by her discontent in marriage and her discovery of Nick's infidelity, Amy devises a scheme that is as vindictive as it is ingenious. She spends months preparing, planting evidence to frame Nick for her murder. Her plan includes fabricating a diary that paints Nick as an abusive, cold, and distant husband. She even fakes a pregnancy, knowing that it will elicit public sympathy and deepen Nick's apparent guilt. Amy's disappearance is timed to perfection. On their 5th wedding anniversary, she vanishes, leaving behind a trail of clues in the form of an anniversary scavenger hunt. What follows is a media frenzy, with Nick thrust into the spotlight as the prime suspect. Amy's retreat, the layers of her plan. After staging her disappearance, Amy hides in a cabin, living under an assumed identity. It's here that her meticulous planning begins to unravel, revealing vulnerabilities in her otherwise airtight scheme. She is robbed by her temporary neighbours, losing much of her money and forcing her to seek help from an old flame, Desi Collings. Desi, a wealthy but obsessive ex-boyfriend, offers Amy refuge in his lake house, but Amy, always in control, soon realises that Desi's possessiveness is a threat to her autonomy. This is where Amy's resourcefulness and ruthlessness come to the forefront. The turning point, Desi's murder. In a shocking turn, Amy murders Desi, using his obsessive behaviour as a cover story for her return. She stages the scene to make it appear as though Desi had abducted and sexually assaulted her. Covered in blood but triumphant, Amy re-emerges, reclaiming her role as the wronged wife and hero of her own narrative. This moment cements Amy as a character who will go to any lengths to maintain control. Her return puts Nick in an impossible position. Publicly, he must embrace her as the prodigal wife, while privately, he realises the depth of her manipulation. Amy's complexity, villain or anti-hero? Amy Dunne's character is defined by contradictions. She is intelligent, resourceful, and unrelentingly ambitious, qualities that would be admirable if not for her methods. Her motives are deeply personal. She wants justice for the ways she feels wronged, but her pursuit of this justice leaves a trail of destruction. Amy's meticulous nature sets her apart from other villains. She doesn't act impulsively. Every move is calculated, every contingency considered. Her ability to manipulate not just individuals, but entire systems, the police, the media, and public opinion, makes her a formidable opponent. Nick versus Amy. The power struggle. The relationship between Nick and Amy is central to Gone Girl. What begins as a love story devolves into a psychological battle, with both characters vying for control. Nick, though flawed, becomes the story's moral centre, the character readers are meant to root for, but Amy's charisma and cunning make her equally compelling. As much as readers might despise her actions, it's impossible not to admire her brilliance. Amy's victory at the end of the novel is unsettling because it's incomplete. While she secures her freedom and reclaims her marriage, she does so at the cost of genuine human connection. Her triumph is hollow, a testament to her inability to trust or be vulnerable. Themes and reflections. Amy Dunne embodies the themes of Gone Girl, the masks people wear in relationships, the roles imposed by societal expectations, and the dark side of ambition. Her story forces readers to question their assumptions about morality and justice. Is Amy a villain, or is she a product of a world that values appearances over substance? Her actions are undeniably evil, but her motives, revenge, control, and a desire to be seen, are painfully human. Why Amy endures? Amy Dunne is unforgettable because she defies the tropes of traditional villains. She is not driven by greed or power, but by a deeply personal need to assert her agency. Her story resonates because it taps into universal fears, the fear of being misunderstood, of losing control, and of being trapped in a life that feels inauthentic. In the pantheon of literary villains, Amy stands out as a character who is as terrifying as she is relatable. Her actions may be extreme, but her motivations are all too familiar, making her a mirror for the darker corners of the human psyche. Her story lingers long after the final page, because it leaves readers with questions they can't easily answer. How far would you go to reclaim your narrative, and at what cost? Amy Dunne knows her answers, and she makes sure everyone else does too.